The Kremlin views Tucker Carlson's commentary as, quote, essential in its wartime messaging strategy. That is according to a leaked 12-page memo from a Russian government agency to the Russian media, obtained by Mother Jones. Here's a little taste of what the Kremlin deems as must-see TV.
Democrats in Washington have told you have a patriotic duty to hate Vladimir Putin. It's not a suggestion, it's a mandate. Because the target is Russia, very few Americans have noticed any of this. They support it. The point here is to defend democracy. Not that Ukraine is a democracy, it is not a democracy. It might be worth asking yourself, since it is getting pretty serious, what is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist?
With me now is David Corn, Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones and author of This Land newsletter, and Malcolm Nance, MSNBC counterterrorism and intelligence analyst and author of the upcoming book, They Want to Kill Americans, the Malicious, Terrorists, and Deranged Ideology of the Trump Insurgency. The gang's back together again. It is good to see you, David, in person.
Great to be here.
Talk about this memo, what it say, and why is it that the Kremlin seems to love Tucker so much?
Well, it's important to note that there's no independent media left in Russia to begin with. They all skedaddled. They were shut down. You can be punished, put in prison for up to 15 years if you report that there is a war, right, or that they're shelling civilians, or the Russian army is having a difficult time. So there's no real media. The only people who are there left are pro-Putin media. And they've been getting these memos from this Russian information agency. You know, it's called a recommendation. That's what it says, you know, if you translate it literally. We don't know if it's a recommendation or an instruction or an order. But the one that I got my hands on from someone who worked at a Russian media outlet, you know, says it is essential to use Tucker Carlson as much as possible. And I have to say, in the whole 12-page memo, and I have another one that's 12 pages from a different day that mentions Tucker as well, there is no other Western or American journalist mentioned. He is the only one. And they say use him because he's saying that the U.S. and NATO, they're the ones who unleashed this conflict. Because he's blaming Biden and NATO for this, the Russians want to use him. And we see that on RT and other Russian media outlets. They've used him. They've even used him recently for this bogus allegation that there are bioweapon labs in Ukraine, and that's what this is all about, because he was on TV talking about it. So this is just standard disinformation tactics. If you can use someone from the other side making your point, particularly if your point is a lie, it's great. And so they have just latched onto him, and we saw it even before the memo. We see the memo now makes it kind of official, and they're getting their money's worth. If you saw from just the clips you played.
And Malcolm, let me bring you in here because there are lesser idiots involved as well. I mean, useful idiots as well. You've got the I don't remember her name, the black lady that Kanye West elevated for no good reason, saying you should really get your information from Putin's speech. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, who's a member of the United States military, just directly parroting the talking points. You've got Laura Ingraham. You do have this sort of parade of MAGA world that are parroting Russian talking points. It is shocking, I think, to hear it coming out of American mouths. Is the Kremlin writing this? What do you think of it all?
You know, the interesting thing about history is every once in a while you get to see it come back again. You know, when I was young, we would hear about Tokyo Rose, the American collaborator who was making radio transmissions in Japan to demoralize American servicemen, or Lord Haw Haw, who did the same thing for the Nazis in World War II. I never thought that these people didn't believe what they were saying. They always were very clear that they believed in Nazism, they believed in the Imperial Japan strategy. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Tulsi Gabbard, I think somewhere along the line, they don't believe this, but they think that it's in their interest to say these things. For Tucker Carlson, it's pretty clear. He is MAGA world. And anything that, that helps Donald Trump out, whether it means turning against the United States, collaborating with another country's propaganda machine, so long as it gets him the adoration of MAGA world, he will do it. I don't know if he really loves Vladimir Putin, but I have to clarify one thing, Joy. These people are not useful idiots. They are beyond useful idiots. Useful idiots don't know, as a term of art in the intelligence world, they don't really know what they're doing. They're just stupid. These people are almost collaborators to a certain extent. They do know what they're doing. I would call them an asset, especially Tucker Carlson. And Tulsi Gabbard, she's just a moron. But for these people to come up there, we are now seeing a term that I never thought I'd see in my life. Fifth columnist. People who are deliberately working to undermine the American structure.
And, David, the one, far from me forever to disagree with my friend Malcolm Nance. I mean, the difference is Tokyo Rose, ultimately was cleared because she was trying to sort of make the people that she was doing these broadcasts for believe that she didn't believe in the United States and that she was on the side of Imperial Japan. It turned out she was making her broadcast deliberately goofy in order to undermine it. In the case of Tucker Carlson, it seems like he's deliberately making it more and more and more overtly propagandistic, overtly pro-Putin. Is there anything in those memos that indicates that there's anything that they're giving to these people? Is there something exchanging hands here, or are they doing it for free?
There's nothing that exchanges hands. And I've thought about this too. Tucker has his opinions. He's free to have them and to share them. And maybe they even line up with the opinions of Vladimir Putin and Russian propagandists. But I have to say this. If I was being cited in memos like this by a barbaric regime that's killing civilians, I would say, hey, leave me out of it. I would say, we made it. I may agree that this is America's fault. I may agree that, that you have a right to do this, but that's my honest opinion. But I don't want to be brought in by your disinformation and propagandist tactics. So he hasn't done that. And in fact, he's done everything to make himself of tremendous use. So even the other day, when Victoria Nuland, a Secretary of State official, testified that there are biolabs in Ukraine and we're worried about the materials, not that there were bioweapon labs or that there are U.S. labs, he was out there saying, see, the Russian disinformation is right.
Right.
And so that's going over the line, because he's not a reporter on the ground. He doesn't know what's true or not. Yeah. He took her testimony and he warped it exactly in keeping with what the Russians want to be said.
Yeah.
And so he has the right to say what he wants to say. I'll defend that, even if he's wrong. But if he's being used this way, he also had the obligation to say, hey, I'm not part of that team.
Take us into spy world for a moment, Malcolm. What would Russia, do with such assets? Because they've got them.
Well, I mean, they're doing what they're doing, which is the amplification of disinformation that is now validated by a journalist, and I throw that in big quotes.
Even his bosses don't say he's a journalist. You take him to court, they say, don't believe anything he says. That's dumb.
But we are literally in a cycle of Soviet disinformation from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I just can't believe it. This is stuff I read in history books about propaganda and disinformation warfare is carried out by the Soviet Union. We are in Pravda country, where every word out of Russia was a lie. Yeah. These people are, first, as we used to call them, useful idiots, but then they've now bumped up to where they want to amplify Russia's message. They need to damage the United States. I, too, defend Tucker Carlson's right to say any stupid thing he wants because he's a moron. But that does not give him the right to create a disinformation bubble around the truth in order to magnify a potential enemy who is actually killing people, a dictatorship, for him to do that. That's just shameful.
They've turned against the West and in favor of Putin. Unbelievable. David Corn, Malcolm Nance, thank you guys.